Progress.
John.
Good morning. Welcome everybody to this morning's Police and Fire Commission meeting. October 9th. We'll start with roll call.
Pinker.
Yes.
Hirschman.
Yes.
Schutz.
Yes.
Peak.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes. Public comment and correspondence.
Nice. A comment from Mrs. Pinker. From our contacts in Minneapolis. She's informing me and you that Lydia Kaiser, who was shot in the head during a school shooting in Minneapolis, is now out of the hospital and back in school. Sophia Forchus, who was the most seriously injured, remains in the hospital. She was the young lady who had part of her skull removed. She remains in the hospital and was given to us. Was it doctors still can't remove the organ? But she's improved.
Any other public comment? And we close that and move on to staff updates. Thank you.
You take the first one.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll turn it over to Steve. I'll just introduce the Tactical Emergency Medical Support Team. Our staff have been working very hard at putting that together. There's a lot of things that have to be put together as far as policy procedures, just training alone. And they've been working with the PD extensively, so we appreciate that partnership. But they've been working on that, and I'll turn it over to Steve. He's going to kind of talk to the course that we just middle discussed.
Yeah, just a brief update. So, and make sure they're all on the same page. We have two similar areas. The Rescue Task Force is something we've been working with the PD on for years. If there's a school shooting, some kind of tactical situation where we need to go and take care of wounded, our people going with the officers, we take care of them, they protect our people. This is different. This is a tactical EMS TEMS class. Several of us went through the course years ago. The last time I was in central Wisconsin was either 2012 or 13. Actually, I've been trouble finding the records, but it was quite a long time ago. The course came up again just recently. We sent 4 of our people. And again, some of us still have that training still qualified. As you know, the chief has talked about working with the PD and actually putting together a TEMS team. So Rescue Task Force, we would go in there protecting our people. TEMS would be putting a paramedic in the stack with the special response team. So they actually go in with them for those special responses, barricaded suspects, things like that. And the main benefit for that is that we have a medic with their team. So if the suspect were to get hurt or one of the officers were to get hurt, there's a medic immediately next to him. Obviously, that takes a lot more training. It's much different than the Rescue Task Force. The class that we sent 4 through this last week was 40 hours long. Very interesting. And because it was held in the area, we were able to, I guess, have some cost savings. So no hotels, anything like that. Crews were able to go and come back each night. So we're looking forward to hopefully having the class in the area again next year, the year after, and continue sending our people for that training.
So are you ready to go now, Steve?
Absolutely not. No, we have a lot of conversation. This is just the training for the guys to working with officers in a tactical situation because it's very different from what we're used to.
Very good. Steve, who sets up the standards for this? Are there nationwide standards? Does this come out of the Law Enforcement Standards Board or DSPS?
Yeah, it's TECC, Tactical something combat, Emergency Combat Care. Is one of the main organizations that kind of sets the standards for this. The class itself sounds like it hasn't changed much from what I went through, talking with who just went through. Again, it's more tactical for EMS, but it also introduces law enforcement in the class. That's one of the benefits. It's a combined class. So you have law enforcement and EMS. They get to learn a little bit about each other's worlds. So that when we do get the team up and running and you guys approve our policies and all this gets working together, then we can really start training with our own officers and doing this stuff on a regular basis.
Thank you.
Is it too early, Steve, to ask about what you think we need in terms of resources?
We've already been digging in that a little bit, so some of the gear we have. Other than that, we've been talking with the PD. We don't have all the answers yet. This is something, and I don't remember when Chief Mueller brought it to you guys just to explore it. You guys obviously gave your blessing. So we're still going through the process, and we'll be able to bring everything back to you hopefully by next year.
All right.
Forward to it.
A couple other items here, technology needs. When you look around the room, we've been really working with IT, which is Sean Trader. He was just in here a little bit ago, and also Tom Lukes and David Ballerstein, trying to get all of our communication to work with City Hall. So I just want to say that I really appreciate their efforts to make this all come together. I spent at least a couple hours here this last week, and we've been here various times throughout the time. So it's great to have those partnerships to be able to work on this. It's actually coming together. And then the last one I had was just we have an interview process that's coming up for new recruits. And I'd like to invite, we've always had one commissioner on in the past. Would like to invite anyone of the commission to come forward. And if you'd like to sit in on that meeting or that interview process, please let me know and I can get you scheduled up. So I don't know if there's any interest right here.
What kind of dates are?
That's going to be on October 29th, and we're looking from 1 to 5 p.m.
Thursday?
or Wednesday. I don't want to hold anything up further. If someone wants to, is interested in that, please contact me and we'll get you scheduled for it.
Put me down.
Okay.
As long as you're talking about recruitment. The people that were responsible for putting these together. You see this? Thank you, thank you, thank you again. This stuff is fantastic in terms of recruiting.
That's been a combined effort. Firefighter Gessert is the one who actually put those together, utilized one of our new programs. Does a great job with that stuff, puts a lot of flyers together for us. And Dylan Cook, firefighter Dylan Cook, he was able to put that all on Facebook so that we got a good posting out there. And I did see 2 to 3 different people that were interested just from our Facebook posting. Right now we've got about 6 people in the pool that will be coming into that. So that's much better than we were 6 months ago. We had 0. So we're doing really good in that area.
Good to have a few people that can do flyers in your department. We rely on ours too.
They do a great job. I give them the information and they run with it. So appreciate all the effort. It takes a very large team to bring all this together. It's cool.
The last point is social media. Just want to circle back with that. Hap reached out and he hopes to have one. Actually, he was hoping to have a draft, I think this week. I haven't seen any draft yet, but I guess there's some research and he's promising that he can do this next month. So, when I get a draft in, I'll forward that blind carbon copy to all of you. So you guys will have a chance to digest it hopefully a little bit before we meet.
Was that something that was gonna be drafted to be for both departments? Cause I know we discussed if we're gonna do one, that we were gonna have similar documents for both departments.
It sounds like he's trying, and again, I haven't seen a draft yet, but it sounds like he's trying to make it close to the city and both of our departments, kind of mesh them all together. We'll see what we have and
Yeah, cause the idea was to have consistency between the departments and the city.
yes.
Ours is currently on his desk as well.
Okay.
So he's looking at everything. He's got the city policy sitting there as well. He's gonna try to mirror it across so that we're not one department is outside of the other departments. You know, we're not operating outside of what the city would do. So I'm gonna try to pair all that together.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Thank you, chiefs. Approval of minutes of the September 5 regular meeting. We have a motion and a second. Anybody have changes or anything? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay. Police Department restructure proposal presentation.
I just want to hand out a few things here for reference. This is the excerpt. And then, since talking about rank can be kind of boring and confusing, maybe just some references here about what our rank structures are, just to review that while we're talking. All right. Thank you very much for allowing me to present this. I think it's important for our department and our city. And I guess we'll get going with it. I got about 12 slides. It's meant to supplement the memo that's in your packets and hopefully have some discussion. Yeah, right.
Not working.
Of course not.
I mean,
We can also forward it for you.
All right. It's not there though. I swear to God, this place hates me.
Let me see something right quick.
Yeah. Remember the last time I tried to show the DOT stuff? So.
Remember, posters all the time.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna have to craft all of my presentations. Are we going? That or overhead projector?
Yes.
it's up here, but not there.
Yeah.
Okay. Getting close to Halloween.
Steve, let's close it out and start it over.
Yeah.
This is this is what we're kind of working through the last couple of days is something for some reason, there's something going on in the computer system and then what gets relayed over to City Hall as well. So we've been trying to make that patch and I don't know if we did something to disrupt this, but I'm sure it had something to do with it. So we'll continue working on it. It's a work in progress. And usually when it comes to technology, it works one day and the next day it's out. So.
Okay, well, we're gonna add a little bit. Go ahead. Okay, so we're gonna verbally go through a PowerPoint today. It's much easier. I've had to do this before during a training where we had videos, and so that was a lot harder. So we'll give it a shot here. So again, thanks for giving me the opportunity to present this. I've got 12 slides that you guys won't see. You just have to trust me, and we'll try to have the conversation as we go through. First of all, I want to talk about why we have a paramilitary structure. First of all, it establishes a clear chain of command. A clear chain of command creates a straightforward line of authority that is crucial for operational effectiveness for an organization. It improves efficient communication and decision making. So that streamlines communication up and down the chain of command, which is especially important in an emergency. Then that information can quickly be deciphered and decisions can be made. It promotes accountability. A well-defined rank structure will ensure everyone understands their role and responsibilities, which promotes accountabilities for their actions. And finally, it enhances order during high-stress situations. So a clear rank structure is important all the time, but absolutely necessary during intense and rapidly evolving events. Rank has to be recognized by all participants, which can span multiple organizations. In our current status, we've identified that there's some things in our department that don't pair up well with a good paramilitary organization. It doesn't take advantage of some of those things that paramilitary organizations are structured to do. For instance, we've identified gaps in leadership in our detective bureau. We have an uncommon rank title in our patrol division, which causes problems both internally and externally. There's a misalignment in our leadership, and subordinate schedule in our detective bureau. So our detectives work in a different schedule than subordinates. And we've also, on the positive side, we've identified or developed a way that we can improve our efficiency and succession plan in our records department. The one sheet I did hand out is the current rank structure, which is in front of you. Just to briefly describe that, what we're focusing on is the area between the office coordinator, administrative services supervisor, which is in the upper left-hand corner of that structure. And then below the lieutenant level, you'll see in the detective bureau, the next line down is the detectives. In the bureau, that's where the worker bees start. Okay, there's no second in command. Where in the patrol division, we do have a second in command. That's what the lead officer is serving at this point. So we'll be focusing at that line from the detectives straight across the right to the lead officers. And you can reference that as we talk through, because some of this, I understand it can get a little bit confusing if you don't work in the structure all the time. So focusing first on the detective sergeant position. There is a gap in leadership between the detective lieutenant and the detectives, leaving no second in command. So the detective lieutenant has 9 subordinates, which is slightly more than what the optimal span of control should be, which is around 5 to 6. Now, those are recommended levels. There's no hard, fast rules that there's a certain number of span of control, and after you reach a certain number, that everything falls. It's worked in our detective bureau so far, much because the detective bureau has a little more seasoned officers. They don't need that direct supervision all the time. So we can our span of control can be a little bit larger in that area. However, having a second in command will improve that span of control and make it more manageable. There is some confusion when the lieutenant is gone. It's often unclear who's in charge when the detective lieutenant is gone. The lead officer, which is a patrol level, the lead officer has authority when both the detective lieutenant and patrol lieutenant is gone. And of course, if the patrol lieutenant is there, then he would take that role. However, they may not be up to speed on what's going on in the bureau, which makes it difficult to make decisions. Also, the span of control is then way outside of the optimal range because that lead officer or lieutenant is going to be in charge of their shift, which could be up to 6 people, plus whoever's in the detective bureau. So that span of control gets spread really thin. Having that detective sergeant would help balance that out. Again, the detective sergeant would take over leadership in the absence of the detective lieutenant. And the detective sergeant would be a working sergeant. So that person isn't going to take away from the case. They'll be carrying a caseload, so we'll still be able to manage the same number of cases. They just would be supervising alongside the lieutenant as well. So a little bit of a dual purpose role. Sure, I got everything there. There is a misconception in promoted versus appointed. So there's a misperception of authority between the lead officer and the detective that's constantly reinforced by the pay and department structure. In reality, the lead officer has rank, but that misalignment has been an issue for a number of years. Creating a sergeant position will alleviate that issue because the perceived misalignment will no longer be reinforced.
Deal, Jody?
Yeah, got it.
All right, you can forward.
That's not the slideshow though.
The slideshow.
Yeah,
It won't.
if you for some reason slideshow wants to stay on the main screen, so you can forward.
Well, it's still forward this way.
It'll still forward that way. Was. There you go.
Okay.
Not ideal, but.
Oh, boy. All right, patrol sergeant. You call me lucky. Right. Clear rank structure is essential in an emergency. Not only is our rank structure needed to be clear internally, but also externally. We often work with other agencies who also need to quickly recognize rank and the amount of authority that each rank has. An uncommon rank title, if you remember back in the advantages for a paramilitary organization, as we mentioned before, a recognized title is important in a paramilitary organization because that's how we can quickly establish who's in charge and what amount of authority that they have. An improper rank will cause ambiguity. So an improper rank structure between a lead officer and a detective has caused issues since I've been here. Both ranks are pivotal in our department. However, the lead officer often takes on a considerable amount of liability and responsibility that comes with leadership. They share in the responsibility to lead the shift, even when the lieutenant is present. They are often highest ranking officer, which make them, per our policy, as the chief's designee on weekends and holidays. Again, in the current structure, they are also dealing with a large span of control during those situations. It's difficult to encourage someone to take on responsibility and not have the appropriate ranking compensation. So the comparable, lead officers doing comparable jobs as sergeants in neighboring communities, this speaks to having a rank that's not in the industry norm. It affects our retention. It affects our retention and our recruitment. If a lead officer is doing the same job as a sergeant in a neighboring jurisdiction, and that neighboring jurisdiction reaches outside of their department to replace the sergeant position, there's nothing really preventing our lead officers from going over there. They can get more pay. They're doing the same job. And so it's not balancing, even though they say in our department it would, and vice versa. If we find ourselves in a position where we don't have a qualified person to take the lead officer, for me to encourage somebody from outside our jurisdiction to come in to do the lead officer role, it's very difficult because it doesn't line up and it's a confusing role and people don't understand what they would do. Moving forward to the detective lieutenant. We mentioned before that there's a misalignment in the schedules that the detective lieutenant has. On the previous structure, when we restructured in 2017, the detective lieutenant was an admin position, which put them into the admin schedule for holidays. Patrol lieutenants, when we made them, they kind of followed, well, they do follow the holiday schedule that their subordinates do, which is the contract holiday schedules. Our intention was to be able to move those lieutenants laterally so that a patrol lieutenant could go to the bureau and vice versa. So when we restructured, for whatever reason, we didn't adjust the detective lieutenant's holiday schedule to reflect the subordinates as is in patrol. We recognize that is a first line supervisor, but we didn't change the holiday schedule. What that results in is there's times that the lieutenant can't come into work and his subordinates either have to use accrued time or show up for work. So if a holiday falls on a work day for a detective, they have to come in or take their earned time off. So what happens many times when we have, I can't remember all the holidays off the top of my head, but say 4th of July, there's nothing that happens until later at night. So oftentimes officers don't want to use their accrued time. They would just come in. And then when that happens, that affects our span of control again. So what I'd like to do is just align that detective lieutenant holiday schedule to be consistent with patrol. And then that also better aligns moving them laterally because it's identical with their holidays and everything else is identical. Then the last piece in this proposal is combining the office coordinator and administrative services supervisor, which is very difficult to say to me. Okay. Currently, the office coordinator handles administrative record keeping. I guess before we dive in, I want to make sure that we can at least loosely describe what each of these positions do. And of course, I can't name all of their duties because it's very difficult and they're very important in our department, but I'll try to briefly explain what each position does. Our office coordinator, they do a lot of things with our bills. They track training records, they do data collection, some payroll activities, and among other things, of course. But a lot of the lion's share of that position is data entry. It's a lot of data entry. Our administrative services supervisor, they deal with, they supervise the records department and our custodian and temporary employees. So like our crossing guards would be under there. They are responsible for open records fulfillment, CJIS compliance, and a lot of things like that. And finally, our record specialist, the bulk of their job is going to be their time's taken up by dictation, case coalition, and data entry. And what's been becoming more popular is obviously our open records. They help fill a lot of those open records requests. So in the past few years, we have been able to identify a lot of efficiencies in our records department. We had things like incident-based reporting, which requires a lot less data entry. We have electronic discovery, we have accounting system upgrade, we have redaction software, parking ticket software, and a lot of these things that used to take up a lot of time in our records division doesn't take up much time anymore. It's become much more efficient. So with these efficiencies, our record staff can assist with completing a number of tasks formerly completed by administrative staff supervisor and office coordinator. So we've been able to move some of those tasks into the records division because there's time now to work on them. And by sharing the duties, both positions, the record staff makes the remaining duties manageable by one supervisor. We're able to, again, spread that work out. And currently, record specialists usually promote into the office coordinator position. We've been very fortunate with Lori being here so long that we haven't had to replace an administrative services supervisor for the entire time that I've been here. The unfortunate thing is that although some things that the record specialists do during their normal course of work now loosely relates to the office coordinator, but it doesn't really translate in. There's a lot of learning that they have to do to go into that position. And over the years, the administrative staff supervisor, or services supervisor has accumulated a lot of other tasks that don't fit nicely into another division or department. So that over the years, that position has become very discombobulated and cloudy. We were able to find a lot of those tasks and have record specialists take over those tasks. We worked with our employees when we work through these tasks, and they're all comfortable with how the work is divvied out. Actually, some of those things we've already implemented because they just become more efficient. So the proposed structure that we have would be on the second sheet of paper I pass out. It's also in your packets if you want to refer to it. We adjusted the administrative staff services supervisor, and we combined that role to clean it up. Again, we worked with the employees and McGrath to make sure that all of that was done fairly and they're equally. The detective lieutenant, the only thing we're doing there that I'm proposing there is the holiday schedule, and that again balances that line so we can move those interchangeably at any time if the department needs to. What we're also doing is at the sergeant level, we're able to do the same thing. So we're adding a second in command in our detective bureau for span of control. And also we're essentially able to move these sergeants laterally as well. Now, remember, we do have the detective bureau working sergeant, so we prefer that they have experience in the investigations field. However, if for whatever reason we find ourselves in a position that we have to laterally move somebody, it's possible to do that. So wage increase for non-represented, that was prepared with McGrath, as I mentioned already, in the city to ensure the position is in the proper pay scale. That pay scale was developed in the wage study that they just completed So last year, Steve?
Yep.
Compression, our city has dealt with compression for a while, but that last wage study did address that. And it did create a spot between the detective and what could be a sergeant rank, or between detective and lieutenant in the current structure. We placed the sergeant at 2% over the detective wage, which allows us to grow and not become compressed again, as long as the city follows through and has been following through with our current wage increases. And the 2% does put them incomparable with our neighboring jurisdictions, and it's also consistent with the other increases and promotions in our current contract. And finally, the union contract. We don't have to reopen the contract. We have that side letter, which is in your packets. That side letter was actually developed by our employee attorneys. And it addresses just this proposal. It doesn't address the other thing. Our attorneys were comfortable with the proposal that we brought forward with them. Sorry, I lost my place here for a second. So we are, the commission, along with hopefully my guidance, we need to understand that we decide what rank structure we need. I feel that the proposed rank structure will clear some efficiencies. I think that it's necessary for our department to have that. And in order to, it seems like we're just elevating, the lead officers and giving them a gift. However, what we're doing is establishing the rank structure and then putting that rank above detective, which is where it belongs. So the compensation follows that. So that's why that is the way that it is. Finally, at the end of the day is the financials. With Lori leaving, or retiring rather, that opens up about $101,000. The combination of the two positions, in office coordinator and administrative staff supervisor, is a cost of about $12,600. That's a little bit fuzzy because we would have to pay that anyway. If we keep the current structure, we have to promote somebody in there. But I think it's fair to address that. To create all 5 sergeant positions is just shy of $19,000. To adjust the detective lieutenant is just shy of $5,000. The overall savings to the general fund would be just under $65,000. And thank you, Jordan, for those numbers. So with that, the presentation, or if you have questions.
I have a couple of questions. The first one would be, it corresponds with the policy too, regarding a supervisor and lieutenant at this point, or lead officer when they're supervisor, to respond to various types of calls. So it's dictated by policy. By having both a lieutenant and a sergeant, even though the lead officer fulfills the sergeant somewhat now, by policy and otherwise, it would be retaining the ability to respond to 2 different calls or more where it's required. But I think that the authority and stuff like that would look better by relabeling lead officer to sergeant. That's my opinion. I don't know how you feel about that.
I guess I don't understand the question. I'm asking that we have sergeant rank.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you think that having the sergeant on shift versus labeling the person as lead officer would benefit the department as a whole in responding to calls, where you're going to need a supervisor on scene dictated by policy, how it is written now, numerous types of circumstances? What benefit do we have by labeling this person to be sergeant versus?
Yeah, I think that the benefit is a lot of the benefits in the retention and recruitment, like I mentioned before. In the response to calls, it's another supervisor. It's not going to be any different in the patrol level at all. If the lieutenant is busy, the lead officer can sometimes respond if the supervisor is requested to. I don't see a lot of difference in the service to the community by changing the restructure. I think it's more internally, to benefit the department. The other would be the detective sergeant. There's obviously some big advantages there because there is no second command for detectives.
So now that you brought that up, the Detective Bureau, that coupled with the lateral, I'll just go to the lateral instead. What's the benefit of the lateral moves for both the Detective Bureau as well as the patrol division within the department? What benefit, long and short term, would the department gain by having lateral coupled with the holiday and all those types of things and make it more feasible to move like?
I think it's always good for an organization to be able to pivot. Right? If we have someone that, for whatever reason, maybe for family reasons, they have to have a different schedule, or there could be all kinds of things. We're not pigeonholed we're not pigeonholed into that somebody has to stay on a certain rotation or certain shift. It gives us that lateral movement.
Do you think it also offer more coaching within the patrol division toward investigative
Absolutely.
capability and expertise, having worked within the Detective Bureau, bringing that into patrol by moving people around laterally?
It could, absolutely.
Would the sergeants be allowed to work overtime if they fall in the union
Yes.
and they get paid overtime pay because they're not salary?
I really see it as two separate issues, Jody. The one for we've done the restructuring with the administrative staff supervisor. I think that's one thing. And I think the other concern I have about changing the titles down the pay is what's going to happen is we're going into CBA next year, collective bargaining. And so my first question for you is, what have you done to mitigate the communication issues that you're talking about today?
As far as between the detective and the officer. That is that we have done what we can throughout the years. And what happens is that we'll get flare-ups, right? There'll be, for whatever reason, there'll be flare-ups between a detective and lieutenant. We handle those flare-ups. And it just seems that as time goes on, it may be fine for a long time, but then all of a sudden it seems to rear its head back again. And this has ebbed and flowed for 27 years that I've been here, and we have a flare-up like every handful of years, and we mitigate those as they come up. It's difficult because what we're doing is creating a culture, and what we want to do is overcome that culture by just finding the ranks right. Correct.
And I certainly see that because I think there is confusion. Part of it is the biggest issue I look at is right now, by going into doing it, I think we're going to limit ourselves in terms of what we can negotiate as an employer, especially the city. Also, there's going to be additional asks that you're going to want to have, like the union representing employees. So you're giving that up.
Well, I feel that the department will benefit from the rank structure. I think that the department and our service benefits from the rank structure. And that's what I'm focusing on. I don't want the union to be able to negotiate what our rank structure is. And I feel if we don't have the rank in place, it's impossible for the union to negotiate that into it, because they don't have business to negotiate what our rank structure is. I feel that falls on ultimately equals.
Which is a really good comment that you made. But I think part of it is, I think I would rather vote on the issue of just dealing with staff services. And I would like to think about, we need a little bit more studies. Part of it is, you had to approach them prior to us knowing about it. And I think really it should have been either to the city or the Fire and Police Commission.
I guess
Looking at the
you confused it.
So
there.
here's what my question is for you. So when you had this conversation, and with Steve Barg, and also, tell me how that conversation.
Which conversation, Randy? I'm confused.
Well, about the restructuring.
Okay, well, I asked the commission back in February to investigate this or to look into this. So that's when the conversations happened, and that's when I started. I didn't start until the commission allowed me to start going through this. During that investigation or research rather, I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of players. Commissioners, Steve Bard, HR, RAP, attorneys, all of those. So I guess I approached the commission first to go through it, and then obviously I have to talk to the union during that research.
I mean, do you think it's an immediate need that it can't wait until next year? Or wait for another month or two to actually go through some of these?
I think we find ourselves in a unique opportunity that we can cover the costs.
And I get that, but that's a separate issue from doing the sergeants. This is a completely different issue than staff supervisor. I mean, that's a non-represented employee. It's a different.
I understand that, and ultimately that falls on this body, of course. I see this as three separate parts. There's the office coordinator position, there's the sergeant position, and the lieutenant position. Lieutenant position and the office coordinator position are both non-represented. And the union obviously represents the sergeant position. So I agree with you. There's several different.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's not well, but I'm talking too much. I apologize. But it's kind of an interest. I'm trying to figure out the timeliness part of it.
In my opinion, and this is just my opinion, I believe we have just a rare opportunity where we can benefit the department. We can cure some inefficiencies and inequalities in our department. We can benefit the city as well, because we're in a position to where we can have an efficient department and more money in the general fund. I don't think that there's many times that we're given an opportunity like this to do the whole package.
I've got a couple questions. So in this sergeant rank, you talk about currently you're just going to change lead officers to the sergeants. How are we going to figure out who fills those positions in the future?
It'd be a promotion process, just like any other promotion process. So there actually is going to be a promotion process for the detective sergeant position. And there likely will be, actually, I think there will be another one, because there's a lead officer that's stepping down. So we'll have a promotion for that one when it opens up. The only time that we're appointing is just this once, because it's a retitling, if you will. But after that point, will be a promotion process.
Okay. So what happens, because these are protected employees, what happens if we get into a situation where there needs to be a removal? Is that something where we still have duties as a commission?
Absolutely.
Or is that going to take union action to be able to take that away?
It will be a promotion. It'd be the same thing if we have to remove it. The exact same process. You guys have that authority to demote or remove, fire. All of that still falls in. You have that the lead officer position is really the same. We have the authority to demote them or reappoint them. And that's all under your discretion.
Do you think there's anybody, let me just walk you through. Do you think there's anybody in that building that's not a lead officer, sergeant position would want to apply?
I hope so. I mean, I hope they want to.
So, okay, so the follow-up to you is, do you think from a culture standpoint that you're going to hurt morale in the department because there's no testing for?
I don't. And actually, what I would share with you is exactly the opposite. We've seen this with the neighboring department. There was a restructure in a neighboring department, and they opened it up, and a lot of the current, I think they went from sergeant to lieutenant in that department. A lot of the current sergeants were not lieutenants again, and it tore that department apart. Culturally, they were really upset, and they saw it as a strategic way to remove people. I think that this is the best way, and I think this is the most supportive way by our employees.
So we talked a lot about opportunities, right? But what do you think some of the challenges are to change?
To be honest with you, this is the biggest challenge I've had is just, it's different. And it's a change and just convincing folks that I think it's good. That's really the only challenge I see in this right now.
So would there be a written test for the two new potential openings like the?
We haven't used a written test in years, Steve. We've gone away with those, and our promotional process, generally speaking, usually is comprised of a letter of interest, obviously, resume. We have interviews, usually a series of interviews. I like to have commissions involved in those. And the last few, we've had a project. I don't know exactly what that looks like in this, but we're going to have a promotional process that's similar or identical to the other ones that we've held.
So is there a written test for the lieutenant position?
No, there hasn't been a written test for any of these positions in a long time. Much because those tests didn't really reflect what we were doing. If you remember, when we took the lead officer test, it wasn't the lead officer test, it was a sergeant's test. When we took a sergeant's test, it was always the lieutenants.
Right.
So we haven't used those in a long time.
It's just a couple observations. I fully agree with your concept of moving us into a paramilitary structure. It's a great deal of complication. Certainly, if we have some sort of mutual aid situation, having a sergeant provides clarity for that type of situation. This brings us, especially in terms of span of control, and brings us into alignment with the incident system. And I don't know the extent to which PD is currently using its command. But that brings us then really to parallel what the fire departments do. And in the fire department, I think our structure there is very good, especially with the backup. This brings us into about the same position. Do we have this continuity? The present cost savings. Jordan seems behind me. Yeah. I think you'll agree that $65,000 is well cost savings. Culturally, from what I see in the department, I don't think there's going to be a cultural issue. I think we're promoting a better culture by moving into this structure. Looking at promotion and testing, now I've been involved with the detective promotions. Mr. Keel and I sat in on that one. I thought that method worked out very well. I think we could apply that to the other positions. Perhaps the commission fine tune that in terms of some requirements, cover letter, projects, whatever. Now, just to clarify, office supervisor is non-represented. Lieutenants are non-represented. So everybody else is represented. Just as a curiosity question, we have the three ladies out front. I assume they are represented employees.
They're not.
Okay, so there is no, what I would refer to as city hall duty. Okay.
Joey?
And ordinance for officers are.
One question. I think it's great to combine these two positions, especially with some of these highly skilled as Cindy. My question is for you is, what happens if it doesn't work? I mean, you have to ask yourself because you haven't come down.
Yeah, and
Maybe it won't work.
yeah, that's a very fair question. It is. We're confident it's going to work because we've been starting. We've had. I got to step back here. So Lori announced her retirement. It's almost a year ago. Okay. Throughout this last year, She has been working very closely with Cindy. And we have done this very slow walk, for the entire year. This has been something that I've been looking to do really since I've been there, knowing that Lori's retirement is coming up. Of course, nothing is guaranteed ever, but at the same time, our record specialists now are much more efficient than we've ever had since I've been there. They're keeping up a lot better than we have slowly walked a lot of these implementations already just because they're more efficient. We're keeping our record specialists more busy. Every indication that I've had in this so far, that tells me that this is going to work. If it falls short, what we're going to do is see what areas are falling short. And I think we can still supplement with either having record specialists step up, or we can have reallocation of duties. We also have an option to where if we needed to improve anywhere, we would look at a part-time employee or start working and dividing a way that we could do that. But like I said, this isn't shooting from the hip by any means. We've worked very closely with all the people involved, and all of them are comfortable with taking on the extra role. And I'm very confident this is going to fly.
Yeah, just one final comment, and then we'll make a motion if I can, is you're going to have compression no matter what, right?
Inevitably.
Yeah. But I do like the idea of having some further supervision in the detective project, because it seems like we don't always know what everybody's doing there. I'd like to make the motion to improve the restructuring.
I just have one comment that I want to put out there before we do that. On the administrative side, I think that's fantastic. Combining those positions, and then it's going to create, yeah, it's exactly easier for people to move into the Cindy's position. They'll have familiarity with it. The restructure itself, I fully understand the importance of clear rank structure, and especially with the sergeant and the detective side, having that number 2 and being able to move laterally. I get all that. The one part that I don't like about this is the letter for the union and the MOU. I don't like that there was salaries and percentages put in there, because I kind of think we did allow the city to have their part said between them and the union. And I think, as far as we're concerned, we should be concerned about the structure and how it's going to work for the department, and let the city decide between them and the union how wages and compression and all that stuff is gonna play out, because they kind of get to have a say in that. That's their portion, and I don't want to take their.
No, absolutely fair. Absolutely fair. That's why I work very closely with Jordan and Steve. And in coming up with this, I had to do a calculator to figure out how much faster the car was going than the speed limit. I'm not the math guy. I had to rely on them to do that. And Steve, I don't know if you want to speak with what Chris is saying as far as the city's position on that part.
I think that the most important thing, we did consult with our labor law attorney in terms of how this would play out for negotiations. And, they weren't overly concerned about the impact it might have in terms of tying our hands, although I do understand what you're saying. But they do feel that it allows us to do, we'll go into negotiations next fall, about a year from now, we'll be talking about it, and didn't feel like there's an inherent conflict per se. Now, if the city decided it wasn't a good idea, we could certainly do that, but there's not anything that's going to be an overt hindrance on our negotiations with the union going forward.
Great. I appreciate that comment. Appreciate that.
Before Randy formalizes the motion, we have it in your packet, we have a job description. Now, is that job description part of the restructuring?
Is it the new proposal, bold job description?
It says job title, police sergeant, supervisor, police lieutenant.
I had a couple in there. There was a proposal job title.
Where's the job description?
I thought I had it marked before, but it would be, if it's a sergeant, yeah.
Okay, so this is what's the policy.
So,
No, it's job description, not policy.
Okay.
okay,
And yeah, that was worked with, McGrath and HR.
okay, so then again, is that part of the restructuring proposal?
Yeah.
Okay, in that case,
Or we can make it side too.
going down, this is on page 6R in the packet, page 4 on the description. We're down to about the last third of the page. There's all of
These we talked about this, didn't we?
yeah,
Yeah,
there's exposure to radiation, electrical energy. That should be moved from a not present into at least the 0 to 10% category.
yeah, I'm sure we can.
And exposure to solvents, grease, and oil, as currently listed as not present, that should be within 0 to 10%.
Okay.
And exposure to toxic and caustic chemicals, that type 1 should be moved there. And the word caustic should be stricken and corrosive should be inserted.
Yeah, I will work with you to make sure I don't screw up those terms and
Right. Corrosive is consistent with DOT, bullshit, and NFPA.
I like that.
So I have a question for Steve. The percentage that's listed in here for the promotion for lead to sergeant, is that something that's set in stone or is that something that still has to be negotiated out?
Oh, it will be in the side letter, correct?
Yeah, so side letter.
So, I mean, it can certainly be brought up again, but that's how it will be shown. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Well, then it'll be effective upon approval as soon as that.
This has to go to finance, budget, personnel
And
and
council. Yeah, it's,
so, and this wouldn't take effect till, January 1, 26.
that would be the process after this for both the finance, budget, and personnel committee and the council to review, to approve that as well. Because of the financial impact.
All right, I got my motion on for as presented. Oh, 3 items.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. And we need a roll call.
Pinker,
Yes.
Hirschman,
Yes.
Jets.
Yes.
Meek,
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Thanks, guys. Sorry, take up, an hour of your time.
Well, I think it was important that we get a lot of stuff cleared up here. There's a lot of,
It's not a small item.
you know, and there's a lot of moving parts here, there's a lot of conversations that were taking place and
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's worthwhile. I mean, I know there were hard questions, but we gotta think.
At the end of the day, it's a service, right? We have to make sure we're doing everything we can. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for
Good
the
job.
job you did.
Thanks for your hard work and from City Council.
Teamwork. Trying to get me organized, sorry. Can we adjourn?
Okay, so now, because of that being carried, we need to request for approval of 2026 law enforcement budget reduction.
Am I? Yeah, and actually this was, Steve was under the gun to find budget cuts. And, so he chose a direction and he chose that the restructure would pass. So now that that has passed, we can say that the only thing that our budget is being affected is just the restructure savings. We weren't asked to take any more from it.
If I can just add to that, yeah, if it hadn't passed, I think we'd have to be looking at some additional requests of you to cut a certain amount, but with the changes adopted today, that won't be necessary.
You can order up a UTV. Joint venture.
We need a motion.
I-
We need a roll call.
I move to approve the budget reduction as presented.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second, and we need a roll call.
Pinker,
Yes.
Hirschman,
Yes.
Jets.
Yes.
Meek,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Hey.
Chris,
Yeah,
would you mind, Steve's on a tight schedule and you know that the fire department reductions are coming up too. It might be beneficial to have him here, talk about the fire department reductions if you guys have questions. Otherwise, he says he's gonna have to scoop.
So you want us to get down to 12?
I would ask that just out of courtesy for Steve.
You guys okay with that?
okay.
Let's do that in, we can have Steve here. So request for approval of 2026 fire department budget reduction.
I'll start that out. Every year we go through budget process, we bring our review, and then we go through the point where we have to kind of figure out what needs to happen to make sure that budget comes together. And this year, Steve had reached out and basically had asked me if I could do $20,000 cuts to make the whole budget package come together. In no time did he ever specify where those cuts had to come from. He basically gave me the 12,000 guideline, and he allowed us as staff to go back through and look at all those different pieces that would come together. If you look in your packet, excuse me. If you look in your packet, you're going to find a memo in there. And basically what we did is we looked at a couple different items. I'm just going to walk through those items. When we looked at our fire apparatus tire replacement program, we want to make sure that we're maintaining that process and then looking at our pieces as we move forward. This year we were able to reduce that by $1,000. We think that's still going to be sufficient for the overall program and not taking a whole bunch away from that. In addition, fire hose testing, I happen to really be working on this fall. One of our partners that we partner with in the community, which is Spencer Fire Department, had stopped in and said that FireCat was an option that we could look at. That's another one that basically does hose testing, and they were about $4,000 cheaper in the overall process, and they look to be a very good compliant company. So they had a big cost savings in that. So I was able to bring that cost savings forward in that realm. That brought us down $4,000 to reduce in that category. Ice rescue equipment, we feel like we could maybe pull some of this forward into this year, or possibly purchase through a little bit different method, maybe just buying certain pieces at a time. We felt like this was one that we needed to maintain our structured services that we already have and not do that. So I did pull that one, $6,258. Replacement of decon liners. When we looked through our budget, this was one that was left over. We believe it's something that we want to keep as a placeholder for replacement of items. So if we use something out on a decon scene, or if we do anything hazardous materials, that can be built back to the spiller. But we still have to have money available to pay for it up front until that bill can come in. Sometime that has to go through the court system to get those funds brought back to the city. So we want to make sure we maintain some portion of that line item of $200 for those decon liners that go in the base plates of our decon tents in the event that they get damaged. Tubes for CO testers, we actually moved that to a different area. So we were able to reduce that down to $200 or take the $200 away from that. Firefighter 1 and 2 certification, we felt like this was something where we had mixed in a little bit more. We looked ahead and we feel that we can cover the firefighter 1 and 2 certification with a reduction down to $632. We basically took $2,000 away from that piece. We feel like that should cover what we need to for next year. I'm not saying that we wouldn't maybe look at an increase for the next year for that area. And then intro to municipal response to aircraft emergencies. This year we had a unique situation happen. We've been trying to work with the REACT Center, which is out of Oak Field. They take care of our confined space, hazardous materials, hazmat, high angle rescue, some of the other special rescues that are out there. And unfortunately, they don't have a class because they've been working with the military to get them up after COVID and get them all trained. So they have not been running classes for it, which created an avenue where we can actually pull that into this year's budget. I've been working with Jordan on that. And I do appreciate all of his help in that area to make sure we can pull that forward. And if it has to go into next year, we can actually push that amount forward if we need to. Annual wellness and testing supplies. We looked at that item and we feel like we could cover that in our other line item. So we should have no problem with a reduction of $300. When we looked at the overall child passenger safety program, we were able to look at that, and I give a lot of credit to Deputy Chief Barnes and Relief Lieutenant Fighter and looking at that program. We were able to get it so we can actually send everyone for the education that we need to still offer that CPS program, child passenger safety program here at the department, but we were able to get everybody to an educational point where they can go down to the conference. They actually had changed one thing this year, and that came in last minute, where they actually went to just having a one day thing where we can send them instead of sending them the whole conference. So that was a big help in that area. And then we looked at permanent employee overtime. Every year we've been trying to kind of look at that and pace it to make sure that it's staying where it needs to with what we have for increased call volume. We're able to reduce that by 1,000. We feel like that should cover that area. Still leaving 42,000 in that part for the fire prevention budget. Overall, those were the cuts. Again, I really appreciate Steve working with us. He's always been good to deal with and to work in this area. I asked for the cuts. We came up with a reduction of staff here. And I guess I would ask for it's better. I don't think any.
One question at the outset, you talk about the REACT Center.
Yes.
Another one of these acronyms, what is REACT?
I can just tell you this, it's covered under the emergency management. Does anybody remember what REACT stands for?
Regional emergency something, but essentially they very specialized trainings, like collapse was also, they have rubble pile there with buildings that are collapsed.
Correct. And that one just happens to be handled in emergency management. That's where the state of Wisconsin is a little bit segmented in how they handle things, but
Okay. That's fine.
Yeah.
The only other thing I would say is, thank you to the Spencer Fire Department for saving us some money. And thank you for your explanations. They weren't as complete as they were.
thank you.
If I could just say a couple things before maybe we get to a motion. First of all, I just want to thank Jody and Everett and their teams. In fact, I want to thank everybody sitting in front of me right now because they all met with Jordan and Jennifer and I 90 minutes each to look at their departments. They're great people to work with in general. An outstanding job. And Sarah and I and our team appreciate them. We're going through the budgets and realizing that while they've got a job to do, while you guys all have a job to do, that they're trying to be as good a team players as they can. They know that finances are tight. We don't get a lot more money from Madison every year than we did the previous year. So I just want to compliment them on the way they operate.
Can we get a motion?
I move to approve the budget cuts presented by the fire.
Second. Motion and second, the roll call.
Pinker,
Yes.
Hirschman,
Yes.
Schutz,
Yes.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Jody and Chris, for allowing me to.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for being here, Steve.
Yeah, thanks for all you do for it.
Ultimately, $40,000 is pretty easy to cut. You're talking millions of dollars, so.
We felt good about where the cost of still sustainably look at it and look for next year. So. Thank you.
Okay, moving back to agenda item 9, approval of fire department bills.
There was one set of bills that was signed by Commissioner President Hansen on October 1st. A couple that I'd just like to point out, we've got SEH, which is on 9E of the packet. When you look at SEH, they've been basically taking care of our training needs. So they had to look through all of our training records, and we've had multiple times we've sent them training records just to make sure that we're on. What that means is they're looking at the record to make sure that we have everything in the training plan or master plan for that training center facility that will make sure that we're able to deliver the training we need. So they've been doing a really good job of that. We've been working with Chuck Lepsig doing it. A couple other items, Wisconsin State Fire Inspectors Association, page 9G. When you look at that one, that is a big sort of our, it's one of our biggest conferences that we go to on an annual basis. We're able to send our public educators and our fire inspectors to this conference. That allows us to get that continued education and have that leading edge on what's going on in the industry. Especially for our public educators, there's not much out there, and this is the one premium. For inspectors, we've had a couple different things that have been developed over time, but this is still one of the premiums to be able to do that. And then the Wisconsin Fire Chiefs Education Conference, that's something I'll be attending next week. But the big reason I brought that up is I really want to thank the commission for being willing to move the meeting ahead and allow us to actually go into that conference. That's where we get a lot of legal updates. We get a lot of information about the industry standard and some new ideas for the department. We've attended that the last, for as long as I can remember, there's been quite a lot of it. So just wanted to say thank you on that. I'd be, that being said, I have any questions about that.
Over on page 9B, one of the ag purchases, midway down, Green Devil Safety Hard Hat into the vision construction element. Chief Barnes for new construction. assume that's walkthroughs.
Has to go walkthroughs in building construction.
Standards will, do we have it?
Is this the same type of hat that our inspection department at City Hall wears?
Right.
It is. Okay, so then this is not this is a class C helmet, not a G or an E.
Right.
You feel you need a G or an E?
I
So
feel
when it can't be G or E expanded, right?
no, it's just like what they got. The only difference is that it's got the labels and I got a shield on it.
Okay.
So eye protection built in and all that stuff. So it falls under all the standards for what they're required to be inside that building, because all the construction workers are in there.
Okay. It's not rated for electrical contact.
I don't believe so.
See. Point of view.
Maybe look into it a little bit further and we'll report back to you. So,
Move to approve the, budget as submitted.
second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Bicker,
Yes.
Hirschman,
Yes.
Schutz.
Yes.
Peak,
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes. Approval of police department bills.
Thank you. In your packets, there's only one set of bills this time, signed by Commissioner Meek on September 30th. One item of note, I was gonna bring this up in the activities, but I think since the bills are sooner, I can do it now. On page 10B, the second line down, there's an Appleton Airport bill. Our SWAT team got an awesome opportunity to attend a training in New Mexico. I know it was cheap. Hold on. Everything was covered. Plane tickets, the hotel stay, almost all the meals. They had top of the line scenario training. It was titled, I think it's actually response to suicide bombers, which is a concerning thing that's rising. But what the guy has said is that it really equated to a whole bunch of hostage rescue training and just cool stuff. And so it's one of those opportunities where you just kind of jump on it. I initially wanted to deny it because nobody's going to Mexico and the whole team. But after the cost was less than the cost of a monthly training for us. So that was good. We were still covered as far as SRT stuff because we have the MOU with Wood County and a great working relationship with Marathon County. So I felt comfortable with having the guys go and they really appreciate it. So
How did this come about?
Kevin Hamill found it. I don't know how he finds these things, but he's amazing at that stuff. It's all federally funded stuff. So
Make sure you say thank you.
I absolutely will. With that, I didn't see anything else, but I'm certainly open to answer any questions before they're approved.
A motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. And we can roll call.
Bicker,
Yes.
Hirschman,
Yes.
Schutz.
Yes.
Peak,
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes. Fire department activities, training, reports and correspondence.
If you look through our package for the activities, we've had a lot of training throughout the month. We've also had the training center. You're going to see that sprinkled through. We've had multiple meetings with SEH on training center and how that's coming together. Right now, they've got a tentative plan put together as far as the overall master plan. We did come up with one. We wanted to put an extrication area, meaning where we can put cars on there, put concrete underneath it, and then we can cut the cars apart. That way it's easier to clean up and maintain. So that's something that going back and looking at, we kind of settled on a 4-acre plot of land for that piece. And that 4-acre plot can be picked up and moved around if we needed to. It doesn't necessarily but it's something that we're kind of keeping an eye on. Again, with training throughout the month, we've got a ton of different trainings we've been able to attend. And my hat goes off to the staff here. They really dig into the training and they really see it as something that's going to be bigger and broader. If you look at the strategic plan we just approved, comprehensive training plan was a big piece of that. And we're definitely following through with that piece. As you look at page 11G, you can see the comparison of the whole month. If you look at that, we've got a slight uptick throughout the year. It's kind of got an average, but it is still in that thing. So we will see that. We're gonna see gradual ups and downs, but for this year, we're seeing a little bit of an uptick. Other than that, those are the things I saw to point out. Commissioner Mayhew.
Have we had any electric vehicle, large or small, scooters, bikes, cars?
We did have one scooter, I believe was last month, and I'll turn it over to Deputy.
Yeah, last month we had a small scooter, had lithium ion batteries in it. It was purchased, by the father within a few days. It was, off the marketplace, I believe, is what it come down to. Had it plugged in, charging it up for the child, walked out and, seen fire coming out of the unit itself. He hit it with a bunch of water, didn't put it out. Neighbor happened to see it. It was in the garage. Went in, hit it with an extinguisher, knocked the fire down a little bit, pushed it outside. And then, fire basically got itself put out eventually, over, with all the stuff they're doing. Fire department got there. Troy, Redshift was on shoot that Troy Weiland was in charge. They went through just to check for hot spots, stuff like that inside the garage. It was inside the garage. He started detecting little 300-degree spots all over the place. Could figure why there was a 300-degree spot over here, and all that. It was that lithium ion batteries blowing up and shooting into and all that. So it's becoming a problem. That's the first one we faced. So, I mean, now you can actually see, when you look at like New York and your bigger cities, when they say you don't want the bikes and stuff like that in their hallways and the stairwells, cause it does, they're heated, they're on fire, they're launching, and spreading the fire out farther, quicker and all that. So we did catch our first one.
I have an important thing just to note this month too. Lithium ion is part of the Fire Prevention Week thing, and we're getting out to all the schools. I think we're going to see about 2,700 kids this month, and hopefully they'll take that information with it to your home, and maybe parents can walk through that and make sure that we're a little bit safer on how we're handling these things.
Are these caused only while they're plugged in charging, or can they be spontaneous?
They're spontaneous. So a lot of it is, they're defining a lot of it was, during the charging, because a lot of people plug stuff in. One of the examples actually for the fire prevention stuff was my daughter's cell phone. She had it plugged in and all that. All of a sudden it started separating and inflating. Unplugged it, stuck it outside for a few days. Over time, it just, went back to somewhat normal. But I said, you're not using it. It's done. We'll get you a different phone and all that. So a lot of it comes plugged in. A lot of it's the wrong plug. If they don't have the proper plugs, a lot of people buy the aftermarket plugins. They'll plug stuff in because it works. They're supposed to always recommend use the plug that comes with the unit itself. But we are getting just spontaneous stuff that happens. I mean, once they start breaking, they just had a big incident in LA where firefighters just got injured due to a Tesla car accident. That Tesla car accident, everything was out, everything was fine. They knocked the fire out and everything else looked fine. Hooked it on a tow truck and it off-gassed and lit off. The main battery lit off. It ended up 5 guys breathing in them fumes. And I think one's still in the hospital. One ended up going to hospital immediately. We got sent home. The other 4 are all having respiratory issues and all that right now. So they're off duty right now because of the fumes that come out of the lithium ion batteries.
Right, several of them, 20%.
Yeah. So they're becoming an issue. They're becoming, and you'll see that in my next presentation that, not only are you seeing them with the cars and all that, you're starting to see more and more businesses are starting to put lithium ion battery backup packs in their business as their server backup power. In case power goes out and all that, so now if one of them decides to light off, now we're dealing not only with lithium ion battery pack on fire, we're dealing it inside the structure, itself. So
Yeah, the rise of e-bikes,
yeah,
e-scooters.
right.
It's just crazy. You just can see.
Right. Great technology. It's all out there, but they don't take the dangers and looked into that so much,
I think it just goes to add that fires are getting more dangerous, just by the light construction we have in the construction of the buildings themselves, and now we're adding something inside that can actually become explosive, along with a lot of plastic and stuff inside. So it just speaks to the volume of how dangerous fires are getting, and how we need to keep an eye on that as a staff to see how we navigate that in the future. What's the best way to put those out, like in a Tesla car? Is it more foam or? Well, an interesting thing with the Tesla cars, they actually have the little, everyone's seen and held the AAA battery before.
Yeah.
They are literally AAA batteries, and what they are is they're all in series. So they put a big coil of those inside this big pack that's inside of that. Once that sits inside that pack, they call it a thermal runaway. One battery will start to light off, it'll heat the next battery and the battery behind it and the battery around it, and pretty soon you start getting that thermal runaway. The only way to take care of those is to cool them. So they say that anywhere from 2,000 to 200,000 gallons of water will cool those. If you happen to see, and this is something probably for everybody out there, this may be something you may see us just watching a car burn on the side of a road, because that is one of the strategies they said. If you have nothing around it, you might be better off just allowing this to burn and just burn out completely, because they can light off up to 72 hours afterwards too. They can rekindle. So, you have to keep that in mind. So someone that might be involved in collisions, you might want to kind of watch where you're putting those vehicles and make sure they're off to a side. So don't put them inside your business for at least 72 hours.
Know how a scrapyard started on fire. They took that Tesla to the scrapyard.
Right, right. Yeah, and they're highly recommended. A lot of the tow services have bunkers, or they put them out open lots so they're away from everything else, or they put them inside concrete, three walled concrete bunkers, set them in there for multiple days.
We even looked at where they have chargers inside a garage, but now there are chargers inside of certain garages where they can pull their vehicle in. We've actually went and bought chains that we can hook onto these very quickly and pull them out of the building if we need to, because honestly, you can start to cool them, but where's all the water going to go? We really need to get them away from that. So we don't get a structure fire or something like that. So we're trying to look at different avenues and how we're going to affect these as well. So just adds another level of complexity to what we already do.
I would imagine for both departments, especially you guys can be first on the scene, we have something like that. You're gonna be changing your hot zone, warm zone, cool zone diameters.
Absolutely.
Well, that, and if you have to have it burn out, if we get a crash on Central's closed.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, it's done.
What kind of breathing apparatus do you guys use? And would that be something that maybe the police department needs to be looking at so they're not exposed to the stuff that's harming firefighters now, could also harm?
Yeah, we can handle it in two ways. So we've done is we started at getting that information to dispatch so they can give us that in the dispatch information. And I would hope that they're giving that out to the police department as well when they're responding to these incidents. The best thing I can say for the police department is they don't have to equip their vehicle with an SCB and have all that maintenance that goes along with it. They're pretty costly. I think for one SCB, it's $10,400. So it gets expensive as we move forward. I would say the best thing they could do is really create that perimeter, and we just train together a little bit stronger on how we do that. For us, we're using the self-contained breathing apparatus where we've got a 45-minute bottle on the back. That usually lasts about 30 minutes inside of a structure. But we basically keep those with us, and then that's enough to sufficiently take care of it by OSHA standards to make sure that we're not breathing in contaminants. Good conversation on lithium-ion batteries. Thank you.
Okay. Request for approval of increase to the fire protection fee schedule and recommend to the Finance Budget Personnel Committee.
Yeah, I'd just like to start that out. Deputy Chief Barnes stuff. He's called around to multiple departments. The comparables that we typically use are going to be Wausau, Stevens Point, and Wisconsin Rapids. But he's also contacted Eau Claire and a few other departments around just to make sure that we're still within the standard and see what we do. But at this point, I'll turn it over to Brian. He's going to go ahead.
All right. Every year, Chief Mueller lets you sure we update everything along with the city. They want to update anything like that to add for the fee schedules. As you see in your packet for the false alarms, nothing's going to change with the false alarm stuff. We really haven't billed anybody for false alarms yet. The fact that when we're going to bill for the false alarms is basically if it's the same issue over and over and over again. So if it's never the same issues, we really don't charge for that. Coming down to the fire inspections, there is a slight change in the fire inspections. When it comes to fire inspections right now, you get your first fire inspection for free. Your first re-inspection is free.
After that becomes the third inspection when we go there. If you don't have your violations corrected, then it's $100 fee and continually increases up from there, $100 each time, on top of that. The change that I wanted to propose was, starting at the fifth inspection, we stop at $100, we start going up $200 increments, for it. So we start getting, the people that really recognize that, you know, we want to make sure you're being compliant, but we want to make sure that we're not falling behind on that, you know, and I think that's just adds that little bit more, push to make sure people are becoming compliant, you know, and they start, you know, even we get a lot of calls that when they get their first $100 fee, they're calling, wondering why I got a fee, why I got this, you have to explain why, and stuff's fixed quick. It's very rare we get past that third and fourth, inspection.
In addition to that, that does reflect what the hours are. We try to do this by an hourly basis, and it takes a lot more time. The longer you get in this, the more documentation you need, because you actually have to set it up for the event that we may have to take it to court. And if we've got to take it to court, we've got to make sure we've got the right justification and all the information we need. So we feel like that's going to be that part that's going to help us to raise that, and cover the costs that we're actually incurring out there.
Okay. Other fire service fees, as in the past, we've had a list of fees. This is where we got the most significant changes that I'm proposing for this year. Instead of having, in the past, we had the structure fire fee. We kind of tweeted on that of having a fee on structure fire, at $1,000. And what we wanted more to do is add into doing the structure fire investigation fee. That way it's a specialty fee. That way it's getting people off duty that are fire investigators coming to do the investigation, doing their paperwork, doing all their photos. If they need to go to court, stuff like that, it covers those expenses up front then, for all that type of stuff. We still remain at that $1,000 fee right now. Go ahead.
On the structure fire investigation fee in the state of Wisconsin, if anything is over $500 in damage, I'm mandated as the fire chief to make sure there's a fire investigation completed on that. So this really helps us to incur the costs that come into that. Those costs can accumulate very quickly as you look at the depth of the investigation that needs to happen. In addition to that, the police department also has a piece in that too, where they help us with the investigative state of it. They'll actually take care of the investigation with looking at personnel. They'll bring them in, they'll basically interview them, and they use their interrogation skills to figure out how to do some of those things. And then we work very closely with them. So this would be something that we'd be able to help in that overall part. And this all goes back to the general fund. So it really would help both departments.
I have just a couple of questions for me. So, you know, part of it is, I think you want to encourage people to be compliant, right? For sure. So are you finding, you know, these additional fees that we're putting on, are they really giving the business owner the opportunity to solve the problem quickly enough?
They do. And I think a lot of it is especially with inspections, because fees come up. When they first see that $100 fee, it's, you know, within days they're calling, okay, we got to fix, you know. And I think they just need that push, because we've got, you know, you always get somebody that's going to try to push the gauntlet. How far can I push this? And what are you actually going to do to it? And we've actually had a few businesses here in town actually tell us, give me the fine. Give me the fine, see what it is.
So have you ever withdrawn the fine? Have you ever withdrawn the fine after discussion?
Oh yeah.
I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, we had some instances, and it's mostly due to the computer program itself. So we go in and they do the third inspection, okay, and now they get $100 fee, but then he went back, you know, and they had to open up another fee, and then the system detects that we went for a fourth one, and then I just retract that fee back right away. All I do is ask people that when they get stuff like that, they can call and ask, and then I can look at the form. Some of them call and say, well, I didn't realize this, or I didn't know that. And I go through the whole log of all the inspections. And I said, don't worry, at your fourth, fifth inspection, you own this, you signed off on this. So there's always a paper trail on where they're at and all that. So that way it just kind of keeps them accountable, you know?
And I think it's reasonable to have a fee for fire investigations. That requires a lot of time and responsibility. So I think that price should reflect some of the work that you're doing.
Right. The next one would be your motor vehicle accidents. Oh, go ahead, Steve.
We've discussed this in the past. So are people submitting these fees to their auto and home?
Yep, and then, when it comes to accidents and stuff like that, I do all the billing for the accidents. I include actually the police department's, investigation, all that stuff. So their reports in it, everything's in there, breaks it down. And then our billing company deals with notifying insurance companies. They let the insurance companies fight out who's gonna pay what and who's gonna pay and all that stuff. And then we end up getting reimbursed for our stuff.
So does PD share in the fee?
Yep. Oh, no, you don't share. No.
You don't share the fee.
Wait, no. They well, they share. Is with the billing is to have, not only we got our report, our photos and stuff like that with it, but you got their traffic report and all that from the accident too. So that way it picks up like anything that we didn't miss, like VIN numbers and license numbers and insurances. A lot of times they have their, when we go to the first accident, a lot of people, you know, they don't have their insurance cards with them and stuff like that, or can't get to them because of the damage to the car. Where the police department have it on there, you know, that they got insurance from this company and like that. So now we got a point to contact for that.
In a sense, they do share in the fee because this actually goes into the general fund. So it doesn't necessarily come directly to the fire department. So this helps offset the overall general fund in that cost. So they would have some cost sharing in that because if we can put more, generate that type of revenue in that area, that helps the city to be able to offset the overall cost of it.
I think it leads to the greater conversation at some point on how fees are going to be important in terms of, you know, making sure that we charge appropriately for services that we have, that everyone's paying their fair share.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely, whether you're on the tax rolls or not.
Right. Right with that. So moving on, motor vehicle accidents, we're gonna keep status quo at that $750. Motor vehicle accidents, same with the electric vehicle type fires. We just, in fact, we're gonna be there a lot longer, we'll use more resources, we're gonna hang most likely a hydrant, stuff like that. We're gonna be pumping, you know, tens of thousands of gallons of water onto that. Passenger vehicle fires. The only difference on that one is the normal vehicles is from that 750 feet going up to 800, just the fact that they're burning faster, they're hotter, taking us a little bit longer to dock these out, you know, and like that. So a simple, like making it even $800. Adding on, this is another new one, is I was looking at different avenues of stuff that we potentially could have, and we haven't had many really over the years, but in case we do, or that commercial or large vehicle type fires. Due to the fact that, you know, you got semis, you got tractors coming through town now with the farm equipment, stuff like that, your big RVs, you know, school buses, stuff like that. Any of that catches on fire, that's gonna take a lot more labor, a lot more manpower, a lot more equipment to put that size of fire out. So we just want to propose putting $1,000 fee onto that, you know, a little bit more, because we most likely have to hook into hydrants and stuff like that also for those larger commercial type vehicles, you know, and recreational vehicles, you know, like big RVs and stuff like that, you know. I mean, you got a fire like that, you can't really classify it as a structure because it's a mobile vehicle. So we want to kind of catch that a little bit and start, you know, like I said, have them small changes each year, you know, we see stuff going on. Hazmat spills, we used to have it as hazmat calls. I want to reclassify it as spills. Those spills are like your gas pumps that they break the hose off and it sprays. Fuel tanks, car accidents that have your fluids all over the road, stuff like that. It kind of covers our manpower for being there. It covers our expenses for the oil dry, for catch basins, stuff like that. For the common, anything that's normal one engine company could handle. Because when it comes to a regular hazmat call, now we're dealing with charging a whole spiller and all that, which is a lot bigger bill, a lot more intense, and that's an individual bill for an individual spiller. Well, this would cover major car accidents, stuff like that, where we got fluid leakage all over the road. We can get that covered up, get it contained, and stuff like that. So,
And determination on that for a small spill, for a hazmat spill, is usually 55 gallon drum or smaller. That's usually what we can consider to be a small spill. Anything greater than 55 gallon drum, that becomes a large spill, and it becomes billable directly back to them.
Okay, Brian, a question. Let's say, discussion's sake, we have an electric vehicle fire, but this was due to an accident. So now we have $1,750 worth of fees, theoretically. You then have a passenger vehicle fire. Is that going to be classified different than the EV fire? And then we move down to category number 6, since you have a hazardous materials incident with EV fires, would we have a potential expenditure on the part of the owner of the vehicle of $34,000?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and that's classified. Break that down a little bit on farther in the packet toward the end there. Giving an example, if you have a car accident, so $750 for a car accident for us to be that. Now that $750 that covers the engine, the personnel, fire suppression stuff that's there, traffic control, and all that covers debris cleanup, all that. Now that vehicle needs extrication. We need to use the jaws of life to get people out. That's another fee that adds into it. And then if that's got fluid leakage, that adds that spill fee onto that. So yes, you could end up with a larger fee depending on how serious that accident.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see, so we did ad spills. A new one I wanted to add this year. We've caught a handful of these right now, this year, and last year that we really haven't, we can't classify it as a structure fire. We can't classify it. There's really no classification for it. Or those dumpster and waste fires. We got people in town here. At times they'll be burning their construction. Like I've had a few complaints. Somebody's burning building materials. We get there and it's a whole entire roof burning. Well, they can't put it out. Now we got to put it out. You know, we should be charging a fee for that. You know, we've got ordinances that cover what they're allowed to burn and fire pits and stuff like that, clean firewood. They're burning something that's not allowed and all that. We can start having those fees. We do have the option of I can go out and give them fines if it's a continual issue and all that. But I want to cover those dumpsters and those larger waste type fires in case that's coming up, you know, because we got to tear the dumpster apart a lot of times and all that. You can't just fill them up sometimes. Even though you fill them with water, they always got the nicks and crannies where water is getting into to put fires out. So we want to cover that type of fire calls. Then we move on to the lithium ion fire suppression. You know, that's going to start covering your scooters. Not only, I'm not so much looking at your little e-bikes, you know, we got it included in there, like e-bikes and the scooters and all that, they're involved in it. This is covering more like your battery pack systems, you know, that are going to be that they're putting in these buildings for backup power and stuff like that for servers and stuff like that. Also include the golf carts. You see a lot of golf carts, your UTVs, stuff like that are all starting to go with battery operated ones. You know, we get those type of fires where we're going to have to, you know, we run an engine, we're gonna have to put it, suppress that fire out. We want to start collecting a fee on that. So, because we may be sitting there for an hour or better trying to put that fire out if we catch it. So we thought since it's going to be smaller, more contained, we'll start with that. If it ends up getting into the structure, now you're going to get that fire investigation and all that fee and all that added to it. And then moving on, we got the CO extended operations. We're going to keep that status quo as that $100. That covers in case we go to CO calls, and especially in the wintertime where we got to cut the deck off or shovel a bunch of drift out of the way and stuff like that, that exhaust while we're out there for more than an hour and a half dealing with this to kind of get that opened up and so the exhaust is flowing correctly. It kind of gives a fee for that, you know, so people should be taking care of their drifts and stuff like that and all that. But we got to tear it down because I've been there several times, 3-4 hours, you know, cutting the deck apart, trying to make it so it's, you know, repairable and all that. But, you know, we want to catch some type of fee for that. So, those are the major changes that were proposed. Other than that, going down further in the list, when it comes to fire permits, that would include like your tent permits, your firework permits and all that. We got the fire suppression permits that we have. Obviously, that's for putting in your fire suppression, our new business, especially new construction that's going on. We're putting sprinkler systems and fire pumps and stuff like that. We always charge that $250 fee right now, and it's a middle of $150 if it's past the timeline. Say they put in for the fee and it's over a year, they got to resubmit to start building. They get that $150 fee. What we want to catch, I was talking with Everett, we decided there's really nothing out there that catches and keeps records of small changes in it. So if they change a certain group of sprinkler heads, or if they add a new FDC into the building and stuff like that, any changes within the system that's between 0 and 19 units, as they kind of classify it, would have a $50 fee. They'd have to put in rent, get a $50 simple fee, just so we kind of keep track that there's been a change in that system. You know, I mean, it could be more like that, but we thought just a subtle fee just to kind of keep track of, not only for us, keep track with development services and all that. So they got record of, there's been some type of change with that system and we got records of it. So
Speak of that too. Department of Safety and Professional Services mandates that if you have 20 heads or greater, that you actually have to take out that permit. We're still finding that we're under the 0 to 19 heads, or they have a small change. We still have to go on scene and on site to make sure that we're evaluating that, to make sure that's going to fit what needs to happen. So we also have some inspection parts. We also have to go through and make sure it gets submitted in and stored in a file. And that really should be stored in our Evolve system with City Hall. That Evolve system allows us to store any changes, alterations to that building. And that really should be noted in there. Right now, we don't have a way of capturing that. And this could, you know, basically if we move forward in the years, we would have a file here that says that there's something, but a city building inspector or plumbing inspector or somebody along that lines would not be able to find that documentation. So this helps us to resolve that issue. And then at the same time, still covers the costs that we have in that area. DHS, which is the Department of Health and Safety, they basically oversee hospitals, any other ones. They have basically a 0 requirement. So if there's 0 heads or more moved, then, or 1 or more heads moved, then you have to go ahead and pull a full permit for that particular one. So different regulations that are out there as well. But this one should cover everything that we needed to. Any questions?
any questions on that? Otherwise, the normal tent fees, the firework fees and the bonfire fees will be status quo at that $100 fee for them to have it. Now, for fireworks, I did get hit a lot last year, you know, do they permits to let fireworks off in town and all that stuff. This was for our big shows, you know, like our concerts at the fair, you know, they have to take that fee out. And then when festival or whomever's going to become, do the fireworks show for 4th of July, that would be that permit, you know, fee in there. So. Any questions on the fee schedule? So we can move this forward to the next step.
Should we add a category for battery energy storage systems? If you have somebody that's getting large enough solar array or perhaps even a wind array, and the excess they're putting into battery systems, large banks of lithium batteries. It's not really a lithium ion fire suppression. This is a monster.
Right.
Should we have a separate category? If we will wait until
Well, we can look into it.
possibly
Kind of, you know, I kind of want to, we'd have to mesh that out and see exactly what we would want to do and all that. Like I said, every year, already got ideas for potentially next year. We want to make sure so we can get this in, so now we can, the city get this in their forms. We can get it off to our fire recovery.
just keep that in mind.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's other stuff out there that starts popping my mind every now and then. You know, well, if we catch this or we have to do this, you know, should we start having a fee for different individual things like we've been doing? That's why I kind of started adding a little bit. Because just stuff we don't get a lot. One, you know, if we do catch it, there's really no category how to bill for it. And, you know, so.
Just one personal note, that's the most comprehensive review of a fee schedule I've ever seen. I'm still getting up with a couple items. I'll make the motion to approve. Second schedule.
Motion, do we have a second? Oh, okay, sorry. And a roll call, please.
Baker,
Yes.
Strickland,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
H,
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes. Okay, thank you, Brian. Review and approval of fire department policies and procedures. And eight here.
Just bears.
We have 9 actually, not 9 actually.
Motion to approve, fire department policies and procedures, item A through I.
One motion. Need a second? A second.
would just, for discussion, I would just note on page 14, Y. Red C. We gotta keep the spelling.
That one's gonna be in policy
Final.
502. So you have, yep, we just got one.
Okay, yeah,
I always do a triple check of spelling when I do this, so.
And I had suggested to Paul that he and his committee take a look at adding cryogens to that list. So we're looking at extremely cold substance. By definition, you're boiling liquefied gases from minus 90 Celsius and below. Minus 1 Fahrenheit. Yeah, you do have those trucks moving now.
Any other discussion or copy? Okay, you need a roll call for this one?
Finger,
Yes.
Hirschman,
Yes.
Jerks.
Yes.
Page.
yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Okay, then just one comment on that. It's kind of proceeding through, it's actually getting down in our policies. Right now, we're working with HR on a lot of our investigative policies on how to deal with. We've got an issue in the department, so we're working through that. And then those get back to the attorney, our social media policies. So at this point, we might have kind of a looser amount of policies that would be coming forward. Hopefully, we can get those done and get those through everybody that needs to look at them. But it may be something as we round this out, maybe just kind of sporadically bringing those forward. So you may see that in the future. You won't see that structured 8 policies per month. We're looking to try to make sure we get everything vetted and make sure it's right.
Okay, request for approval of acceptance of 50/50 match DNR FFP grant for the fire department and recommend to the common council.
This one is actually kind of stems from our CIP process. We had put a UTV in there. And one thing that we've been working on with finance department is truly finding different funding sources for different events and different things that we're doing. This was one of those unique opportunities where we've had an opportunity to reach out to the community and start to work on this UTV project. I think the overall cost on the UTV was what? $37,100. We've got a couple of options here. We've actually got a Wisconsin DNR FFP grant that is coming forward, and that's about a 5,000 or a 50/50 match. So we found the 5,000, and actually what we've done is we've taken the 5,000 from the EMS division, and we're able to find the 5,000 there. That actually helped with the matches. So the grant for the fire or the DNR grant is actually going to cover just the fire suppression side of the skid. So we're going to have to break this project into 2 pieces. And really, this isn't until the 2027 CIP process when that's in there. We plan on trying to find funding 100% from the community and working with different grants that we can find. So the one part we're asking here is just to accept the $5,000 match. If you were to break that down, our proposed funding allocation, we got $14,421 grants and donations received. We're looking at $3,000 for the guaranteed contribution from SNR Truck. That's going to be in the build out phase. That's where their money is going to come into this piece. And they're going to take $3,000 off the top, and then $5,000 from the EMS fund to bring that in. And then we did take $311 from the fire prevention fund as we look through there. We feel that that's going to be able to help us bring that just the skid piece together. And again, breaking this into two separate projects. The skid will end up staying at SNR. They're willing to store that for us. And basically that'll be the back where it has the EMS portion where you could put a bench. And then underneath that bench is going to be the fire pump. And we opted to go with an electric fire pump where it'll allow us to do, 500 gallons a minute as far as the pump. It's got a small tank on it. That way we can fill that up. And if we need to get water to a certain area, we can fire up again. So this will be dual purpose. And I guess what we're looking for is just approval of this grant so we can take it forward to the finance budget personnel and then under the consent agenda with common council to bring all of the other.
I think in the past, the UTV was not presented as dual purpose. I'm glad to see that. you know, and also the fact that you're getting a grant for the equipment. I'll make the motion.
Thank you. One thing we should know before you do that, who are all the people that donated money? That really.
So far, we have received a nice piece of money from Ford Financial. We've got from a foundation for Main Street Marshfields Foundation. We got money through them. Simplicity Bank was donated. State Farm over here on Chestnut, they donated money toward it. What else is it there?
And SNR.
SNR.
Enbridge.
So we've gotten a handful of donations already. I'm still working on different grants and all that. Oh, Enbridge, I had money from Enbridge came in for it already too. So I'm still working. I got a lot of grants out there right now, sitting out there looking for other donations. So if anybody's got any other ideas, stuff like that for that stuff, let me know because I've been writing them all over.
So this isn't so much for me or anybody that's here, but maybe people that might be listening, TV, et cetera. Under the background, can you read the first paragraph basically? Because that shows or illustrates the benefits of having this added to an apartment.
Absolutely. I can certainly read that. Under the background, earlier this year during the CIP meetings, the department proposed purchasing a fire/EMS UTV to support wildland fire suppression, patient transport in parks, trails and nature preserves, and emergency response at major city events. At that time, it was recommended that alternative funding sources be pursued. Since then, the department has applied for several grants and requested donations.
And I think when the equipment is all set up and ready to be presented to the public, you could do some type of small event to honor those people who contributed.
Absolutely. We're going to definitely do a Facebook post. We're going to do some pictures with them. We'll probably even do a christening event and bring them in. You know, these are like those things where we can have collaborative approaches to how we do things in the community. And I think this is just one of those examples of how you bring all that together and work together with the community to bring a project like this forward. So.
Good work. I like spending a lot.
Good.
We had a motion, right?
In a second.
Okay, we need a roll call, please.
Finger,
Yes.
Hirschman,
Yes.
Schutz,
Yes.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes. Police Department activities, training reports, correspondence packet.
In your packets, there are listed activities. Again, we have a ton of training and activities. The only one I was going to bring up was already mentioned with the tactical training, but certainly I will answer any questions before the based on.
Yeah, just a quick comment. My wife works at Maximum Realty, and you guys came in and did an active shooter thing, and she said that was a very good presentation.
Thank you. Travis actually does a lot of those. It's been a really good service, and we get businesses reach out a handful of times a year, and we're happy to do that. So everybody's feel better and more safe.
Any other discussion or questions for Chief? Then we will move on. Thanks, Jody. Fire service and law enforcement news updates.
What you got in front of you is probably the third meeting since the last meeting, so it goes down. I just want to point out the first one I was struck by. Kansas City, Kansas, as Chief has pointed out numerous times, laying on spike strips is one of the most dangerous things that you do. And the gentleman survived. Massachusetts State Trooper, another struck by failure to move over at a traffic stop. This trooper was severely injured, and now he is the face of the Massachusetts State Police move over education program. And as they noted, behind every set of flashing lights, there's a family waiting for the safe return of their officer. Move over, it's the law that would save a life. Moving down to the page, in the last month, there have been 3 fatal crashes involving runway drivers striking paramedic units head on. That's all going the wrong direction. Some of them have been impaired. And I've seen the pictures of the ambulances. There's nothing left, especially with the high speeds. Some of you may have seen this. This was on the national news. On September 11th, Cape Coral, Florida, one of the fire stations. This giant eagle flies in, sits on the roof of the fire station during the ceremony. Screeched and then flew off and everything. Cleveland, Ohio. I mentioned Cleveland before because they've had problems, both law enforcement and in the fire service. The firefighters union was making frequent complaints about the conditions of their buildings. They finally had inspectors come in. They surveyed the 27 fire stations. None were found to be in good shape. They had everything from roof and infrastructure issues, plumbing, electrical, mold. Their estimated cost to bring to basic livability because they were doing deferred maintenance, which wasn't catching up. They estimated $10 million. Item not in the packet. I found these after doing some research on the Portland, Oregon demonstrations. This is what the A group has been putting out about LGBT ice. And there is from the International Association of Police Chiefs of Police, their resolution condemning incitement violence. That appeared online just recently. And the last one, yes. Miami Metro-Dade now has a driverless patrol vehicle. They will have an officer in the vehicle. Apparently they intend to use the vehicle with cameras for surveillance purposes, whatnot. Their intent is to have, what's the term, an autonomous vehicle at some point in the future after they do the operation. Yes, the road. And look, with the persistent demonstrations in Portland, I've been doing some research. There is a lot of information put out by groups supporting the demonstrators. I've got some of it, download some others. It's everything from how to keep police response, using reinforced banners. Very interesting. I'll try to bring some of that, not for mass distribution, but found together next week.
Bill? Items for future meetings. Currently we have on there social media policy for both departments.
Future plan.
I would like to request one for either November or December. With the current political situation and the amount of political violence that is going on, plus we have an election coming up next year. There is a section in the open meetings law, which allows a closed meeting to discuss strategy for crime detection and prevention. I would like to see under that provision discussions of our strategies relating to broad term counterterrorism. I think it's vital that we know what the department's got in terms of strategies with partners. Nothing may occur, but I would much rather have us have specific strategies, preparedness, so that we are covered. If we don't, police department's not going to be able to justify. We're not going to be able to justify. So I request that for November, no later than December. That I think it's cheap and check it. I think it's 1985, correct?
Eighty-five, what was it?
You're in one, Karen.
You're in one, that's what I thought you said one, okay.
Any other items? Then we will adjourn for today. Thank you, everybody.
We can